One aspect of Japanese fantasy films that often goes overlooked is the significant part that women played in the drama, particularly in the films directed by Ishiro Honda during the 1950s and 60s. Many Godzilla films, as well as other Toho science fiction pictures, were populated by memorable and strong female characters. These female characters mirrored their counterparts in American sci-fi movies to some extent. There were women in peril, lady scientists, jungle girls, astronauts, reporters, devoted girlfriends, and even space aliens. But the women of the Toho universe could be quite different. The heroines of Honda's films brought elements of comedy, romance, tragedy, and mystery. In their finest moments, these women were the story's moral center, making pivotal decisions that affected the outcome of a movie and the fate of the world. And as an added bonus, they were played by some of Japan's most talented and beautiful actresses of the day. It all started with the original Godzilla, where young Emiko Yamane is faced with a moral dilemma of global consequences, the choice between remaining loyal to her fiancé, the mysterious Dr. Serizawa, or risk destroying their relationship for a chance to save mankind from the rampaging monster, which of course symbolizes nuclear war. For Emiko, breaking her promise to Serizawa and revealing the existence of his oxygen destroyer to the world is a far greater betrayal than breaking off her arranged marriage to him, and she agonizes over this decision until the sight of the dead and the wounded, particularly the children, in the aftermath of Godzilla's attack, finally compels her to act. Emiko was portrayed by actress Momoko Kochi, who also appeared in Ishiro Honda's alien invasion epic The Mysterians. Kochi had a relatively short acting career in the 50s and 60s, and she once said that she stopped making films because her association with her role in Godzilla was so strong that she chose to leave the public eye altogether. But her feelings must have changed over the years because Kochi reprised the role of Emiko in Godzilla vs. Destroya in 1995, which turned out to be her final film. The cast of Mothra was led by the tenacious but somewhat clownish reporter played by Frankie Sakai and his sidekick, the photographer played by Kyoko Kagawa. Kagawa was an established veteran actress with a wide-ranging career who appeared in many films by director Akira Kurosawa, among others. There's a comic banter between Sakai's and Kagawa's characters that's vaguely reminiscent of Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Well, 3 years later, in the sequel Mothra vs. Godzilla, this comic tension was ratcheted up a notch by Akira Takarada and Yuriko Hoshi, who played an even more memorable version of two very similar characters, the hard-nosed reporter Sakai and his sidekick, the spunky cub photographer Junko. Yuriko Hoshi has a naive charm about her, and she and Takarada really steal the show from the monsters at times, with Hoshi's naivete contrasting with Takarada's flustered frustration with her. But Hoshi's role is more than just comic relief. At the pivotal moment in the drama, it's notable that director Honda and screenwriter Shinichi Sekizawa chose Hoshi's character to deliver the film's central message and one of Honda's recurring themes, the idea that the people of the world should look past their differences and unite in their shared desire for peace and understanding. At first, the infant islanders refused to send Mothra to help save Japan from Godzilla, but again, Honda and Sekizawa give a female character, or in this case two twin female characters, the power to make a world-changing decision. The tiny fairies, also known as the Shobijin, are the embodiment of the kind of compassion that Honda hoped the nations of the world might someday show one another, and their beautiful song, Sacred Spring, reawakens Mothra and sends the monster, which incidentally is female, to defend Japan from Godzilla's impending doom. The fairies were played by the pop-singing duo The Peanuts, which consisted of twin sisters Emi and Yumi Ito. The Peanuts not only were successful musical artists, they also appeared in numerous films, and they made a brief bid for international stardom by releasing a few records in English and appearing on American television shows in the 1960s. Yuriko Hoshi and the Peanuts also co-starred in Honda's Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, a giant monster film dominated by interesting female characters. Hoshi plays a very similar character to the one she played in the previous film, a naive young journalist who stumbles across the incredible story of a prophetess from Venus whose predictions of monster mayhem all seem to come true. The prophetess is actually the beautiful, amnesia-stricken Princess Salno in disguise, played by the very alluring Akiko Wakabayashi. And in Dogora, Akiko Wakabayashi plays a member of a gang of jewel thieves who tries to make off with the diamonds and ends up getting slapped around by her crime boss, very uncharacteristic for a Honda film, and eventually shot in the back. Just about everybody's favorite actress in the Godzilla series seems to be Kumi Mizuno, who possessed a beauty and screen charisma that were like no other. And her most memorable sci-fi role came in Honda's Invasion of Astro Monster, where Mizuno played the alien femme fatale Miss Namikawa. Because this is such a kitschy movie with all its monster action and flying saucers and outlandish alien costumes, it's easy to overlook the fact that Namikawa is the most fully developed character in the film, as she transforms from a cunning, computer-controlled cog in the aliens' invasion plan into a compassionate and self-sacrificing woman. Apparently, she just couldn't resist Nick Adams' tough guy charms. Kumi Mizuno's acting had a sexiness to it that was uncommon in Japanese science fiction films. In Honda's Matango, Mizuno played a flirtatious actress who can't resist the forbidden fruit of the diseased metaphorical mushrooms, and her role in Gorath was indeed memorable for a bathtub scene. Mizuno also played a compassionate scientist who cares for giant monsters in Frankenstein Conquers the World and War of the Gargantuas. But women didn't always play the role of moral conscience in Honda's science fiction pictures. Yumi Shirakawa was one of Toho's popular leading ladies of the 50s and 60s, but her roles in science fiction movies were rather demure, one-dimensional characters or damsels in distress. Shirakawa played Kenji Sahara's weeping girlfriend in Rodan, the beautiful nightclub performer trapped in a web of mystery in The H-Man, and the daughter of an astronaut in Gorath. Mie Hama, a petite and sexy star of many Toho mainstream movies in the 1960s, had the rather thankless role of Fumiko, the object of King Kong's affection in King Kong vs. Godzilla, a film in which she spent a lot of time screaming at the top of her lungs and sitting in a rather unconvincing giant-sized mechanical ape hand. Yoko Fujiyama, a familiar Toho actress of the 1960s, had a rather standard role as the daughter of an exiled military commander in Atragon, and she played a scientist's assistant in Dogora. Sometimes women played the role of the villain, which made things rather interesting. In Atragon, for instance, the undersea kingdom of Mu declares war against the people of the Earth's surface, led by the stone-cold empress played by Tetsuko Kobayashi, a novice teenage actress who was cast because Honda thought she just had a special quality that suited her for the role. One of the best villains in all of Toho's science fiction films was Madame Piranha, the beautiful femme fatale from a mysterious, unnamed Asian country bent on nuclear domination in King Kong Escapes. Mie Hama gives a very appropriate and wonderfully devilish performance, all the while displaying a very hip and wide-ranging taste in clothing. In Honda's Destroy All Monsters, the malevolent aliens who invade Earth and take control of Godzilla and all the giant monsters on Monsterland take the form of beautiful women clad in shimmering silvery costumes. The evil Keylok alien queen was played by Kyoko Ai, while Kyoko Manabe, the unwitting pawn in the aliens' takeover plot, was played by Yukiko Kobayashi, who also appeared in Honda's film Space Amoeba, playing a native girl. It's worth pointing out that even though Japan has a reputation abroad as a male-dominated, patriarchal society, Toho's science fiction films often depicted women as assertive, intelligent, and complex characters. And it's also worth mentioning that the actresses in Toho's science fiction films were not B-movie stars like many of their American contemporaries. Many of them were A-list actresses who appeared in all types of mainstream movies. Science fiction was only a small part of their work. Of course, Ishiro Honda was not the only sci-fi filmmaker at Toho. Motoyoshi Oda's Godzilla Raids Again features Setsuko Wakayama, a frequent Toho actress of the day, as the hero's faithful yet rather bland girlfriend. And Godzilla vs. Hedorah, directed by Yoshimitsu Banno, has a great psychedelic main title theme performed by Keiko Mari, an actress who appeared in several Japanese sci-fi TV shows during the 70s. Jun Fukuda directed many science fiction and monster pictures, and like Honda, he had a tendency to depict women as strong and assertive, although in a more physical way. In Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, Kumi Mizuno played Dayo, a tough island girl who helps a band of castaways defeat a rogue terrorist organization that's building a nuclear bomb in the South Pacific. A similar character was Saiko Matsumiya, the orphan girl on Solgel Island in Son of Godzilla, who helps a group of scientists escape the island without being killed in a monster melee. Saiko was played by Bibari Beverly Maeda, an actress reportedly born in Australia. And Godzilla vs. Gigan features a karate-kicking girlfriend played by Yoriko Hishimi, who uses her fighting skills to bail the heroes out of trouble. Fukuda's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla included a female archaeologist played by Reiko Tajima and a princess from an ancient Okinawan family. The princess was played by Beru Bera Lin, or Barbara Lin, who, according to some sources, was called the Marlene Dietrich of Japan because she appeared in some racy movies rather early in her career. Terror of Mechagodzilla was Ishiro Honda's last feature film, And the tragic character of Katsura Mifune, who sacrifices her life to save the world and the man she loves from an alien conquest, is reminiscent of Honda's classic female science fiction characters. Played by Tomoko Ai, Katsura is torn between her allegiance to her father and her heart's desires, between her cyborg body and her human conscience, and she embodies the dramatic conflicts that made the women of Toho's vintage science fiction and fantasy films so memorable.